Hi, my name's Colin and this is the Action Figure Resource video channel, the place for all the action figure news, reviews, tutorials and guides. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy my videos. Today I'm going to be taking out the Marvel Legends Series 2 action figures released by Toy Biz in 2002. But before that, please take a few moments to subscribe below, smash that like button and hit the bell icon. When you hit the bell icon, please make sure you select all in order to get notifications whenever I upload a new video. To help support this channel, please check the link here and check the description box below.
ActionFigureResource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.
Welcome to the best action figure guide in the world, the largest database of action figures on the internet with 60,000 plus individual vintage action figures listed, including Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, and many, many more. Each toy listing has information on its release date, the manufacturer, product number, its rarity, and the historical value of the toy. Available of our special limited time beta discount of 70% and get a full year subscription for only $14.99. Join now.
The Marvel Legends line is probably one of the most iconic and popular action figure lines ever released. In the previous video, we looked at the first wave of figures in this line released by Toy Biz in 2002. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the second series. The Marvel's Legend line was actually intended to be a spin-off line from the Spider-Man Classics line, but it proved to be so popular that it is still running to this day. With Toy Biz, the line went on to have 16 series, but in 2007, Hasbro got the Marvel license, but continued to produce the line for a few more years before it was unfortunately cancelled. With the event of the MCU and its huge popularity and the growing fan pressure, the Marvel Legends line was eagerly reintroduced and is still going to this day. Toy Biz originally packaged each of the figures in the initial wave with a comic book about the character. Different variations of the comic book were also produced in gold. Some of the figures also came with a mini gold poster, and they came with a unique display stand. The Series 2 figures were released in 2003, and as with the first series, there were several variations of each of the characters released. These variations were often more to do with the accessories and the comic book or the poster that came with the figures rather than the figure themselves. However, in some instances, there were also different variations of the figure released. The Series 2 line officially only had 4 characters in the lineup. However, there were 2 additional figures that weren't featured on the back of the backing card, and this was the Hulk variation figure and the Doombot figure. Also, on top of this, because of the different variations of accessories that were available in this line, there were actually up to 16 different available. For the full listing of the figures and variations that came in this set, see the description box below. The packaging for these figures was very generic to save costs. Toy Biz used a clamshell design which remained the same for all the figures. The clamshell had a space at the front for a card to be inserted with the Marvel logo and the character's name. There was also a generic backing card produced that had the Marvel logo and Series 2 printed at the top. This meant that the same backing card could be used for all the figures. The comic book, which was character specific, could then be placed on top of the backing card, and the action figure itself would be placed on top of the comic and the accessories to the left of the figure, before being sealed inside the clamshell. This meant that it was easy to replace the backing cards and characters. The reverse of the backing card had the character's profile and images of each of the 4 characters that were available in this line. As already mentioned, the backing card did not include any images of the Hulk variant figure or the Doombot figure. The figures stood at about 7 inches in height and featured as much as 30 points of articulation, making these some of the most poseable action figures available at that time. The 16 figures and variants that were available in this line were the Hulk, which was a variation of the Series 1 figure with a torn lab coat, a US version Doctor Doom, a UK version Doctor Doom with gold poster, a Canadian version Doctor Doom also with a gold poster, the Doombot, a UK version Doombot with gold poster, a Canadian Doombot with gold poster, a US version of the Human Torch with the number 4, a US version of the Human Torch without the number 4, a Canadian version of the Human Torch with a comic but without the number 4, and a Canadian Human Torch with a gold poster without the number 4, and a US Human Torch with gold poster and without the number 4, a UK Human Torch with gold poster and with the number 4. The Namor figure, a US Namor figure, a Canadian Namor with gold poster, a UK Namor with gold poster, a US version of the Thing, a Canadian version of the Thing with comic, a Canadian version of the Thing with a gold poster, a UK version of the Thing with a gold poster, and a trench coat variation Thing released in the US. Let's take a look at these amazing figures in more detail. To watch the rest of this video and for exclusive members only content including tutorials, videos, guides and price listings, join the AFR Members Only Club with the link in the description box below.
Welcome to the best action figure guide in the world, the largest database of action figures on the internet with 60,000 plus individual vintage action figures listed, including Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, and many, many more. Each toy listing has information on its release date, the manufacturer, product number, its rarity, and the historical value of the toy. Available of our special limited time beta discount of 70% and get a full year subscription for only $14.99. Join now.
actionfigureresource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.